Everyone, welcome to the U Project. Craig Harper chiming in again. Hope this finds you great. Hope you're doing life on your terms, having some funning, living some funning. Start again. Fucking idiot. Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. Slow down, Harps. Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. The U Project, but you know that. I'm Craig Harper, you know that as well. Who you don't know is the bloke sitting across from me. His name is Jack Nagle. We're going to talk today about all things drugs, life, recovery, addiction, family, and all of the variables, the multitude of variables, issues, challenges, problems, solutions that are interwoven in and around essentially drug addiction, or not just drug addiction, addiction full stop. Hi mate, how are you?
Good, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being had. How are you going with the microphone?
Is it close enough?
It's close enough. It's close enough. So you and I go back a little bit. We probably met about, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that on the way and thinking to myself, time flies. I think it is about that.
How old are you now?
27, 28 tomorrow actually.
Well, happy birthday, son. You were a baby. Well, I think you were maybe 21 or 20
when I met you, I would have been 22 because I think I was a year into
sobriety.
Yeah.
So you were an addict until you were 21-ish?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Is it common that, now I'm going to ask you questions that I know the answers to, and you know I know the answers to because I've worked in the space a little bit, not as much as you, but because I want to kind of paint a picture for our listeners around the totality and the length and breadth of addiction, because I think when a lot of people who haven't been directly affected by addiction hear alcoholism and addiction, they essentially think grog and drugs. But it kind of it meanders its way into a lot of things, from obviously alcoholism and drug addiction to social media addiction. We're seeing these days, to gambling, to porn, to other stuff which I reckon almost overlaps, like obsessive compulsive behaviours, which are about control and all that kind of stuff. So give us kind of a snapshot of what addiction can be.
Yeah, so you're totally right. It's really interesting. And by the way, it's actually really cool. Russell Brand, being such a public figure, has kind of touched on this.
We love him here. There's two of his books in front of you right there.
There you go. Oh, yeah.
There's one there. We love Russell. Oh, there's another one, my bookie Wookie.
It's pretty cool. I've actually met him through recovery circles when he comes to
That's awesome.
Australia and stuff. And he's a really good dude. He's just really chilled out.
Well, if you can get him on the U Project, I'll give you a little $1,000 kickback. No pressure.
Oh, I'll take him on with $1,000. No, joking.
That's been Jack Nagle. Thanks very much. So addiction?
Yeah, so look, and it's so true, because if I look back at my life even before I picked up drugs and alcohol, there's definitely underlying characteristics that have played out all through my life. So incredibly obsessive, and I would say an inability to kind of regulate myself emotionally to an extent without working on it. So just really impulsive. And I guess hypersensitive to the world, you could say.
And how did that manifest? What was showing up? What was happening in that hypersensitivity?
So I actually played pretty high level basketball as a junior.
Right.
And I can always remember, when I think back on it, and it makes me sad actually, even though I had everything going for me and everyone was looking at me from the outside thinking he's doing really well.
Yeah.
I actually just hated myself, and if I got a criticism from my coach or anything like that, I would just completely spiral, and I would just be beating up on myself inside my head. And then obviously doing that for years and years just kind of builds and builds into low self-esteem and other emotional problems, which really is at the core of anyone's addiction, then would lead me with a way of looking to escape that. And I didn't know any of that at the time. That's all in hindsight, but that's kind of what was going on for me. So I was just really and it wasn't just with negative stuff either. It was positive stuff. So, like I craved positive feedback, and if I didn't get it, I felt like there was something wrong, or, it was a really kind of strange.
Isn't it funny how much of addiction often ties back to some kind of emotional, psychological, or perceived emotional or psychological hole or need, or I'm lonely, I'm disconnected, I feel shit house, I'm in pain, I'm sad, I'm anxious, and then somebody takes something, whatever the something is, and then in that moment, a lot of people anyway feel a sense of relief.
Yeah.
And they go, well, this state that I'm currently in is much better than the state that I'm normally in, so I'll do this tomorrow as well.
That's right. And it's really, really interesting when you talk to people, and it doesn't matter whether they have a gambling addiction or problem, it's some other behavioural problem, or it's drugs and alcohol. If you talk to them, they'll all talk about kind of this emotional void that whatever that addiction was filling.
Yes.
Like you can put, often I've found you can put people with gambling problems and drug and alcohol problems in the same room to talk about what's going on, and they'll completely relate to each other. So it's
because the addiction is feeling better.
That's right.
Or the addiction is I want to feel good. The addiction is I want to be out of pain. The addiction is I don't want to feel all the shit that I constantly feel. And when I do this thing, even though intellectually I know this is not a good thing over the long term, like nobody says to themselves ever, I want to be an addict.
That's right.
And nobody ever uses anything initially with the intention of, or even with the belief of, I'll be an addict.
That's right.
Right? So it seems that in the rehab space, all the various kinds of programs and online stuff and face-to-face stuff and one-on-one stuff and group stuff, it seems that a lot of counsellors are ex-addicts. Is that true?
Yes, in the private sector. And in the public sector, there is a lot as well, actually, but just in Australia, in the public sector, which is interesting, which has been a big topic of conversation with like government and stuff lately, that you're not actually allowed to kind of speak about your experience. But I've definitely found, not just in my experience.
Hang on. What? So you're a drug counsellor, you're working with addicts, you come from that background. So you've ridden the fucking ride, and clearly you're out the other side, like someone like you, who's getting married soon, who's healthy, who's got a business, who's doing well, who's got his shit together. So you can't talk about what you learned on your journey with others.
No.
Why is that?
Well,
hey, government, fuck off.
I've actually been, it's really interesting, and I've been... it's challenging for me because I know the benefits that people experience when they just relate to someone else's story and build the trust, and then all the clinical stuff can come in and work for them. But there's this perception, I guess, from people that haven't used drugs, which is fair as well, and there's got to be some way of managing it, but essentially not wanting to put because obviously when you go through addiction and you end up in a really bad spot for a fair while after, you're pretty vulnerable, and you still can be in a lot of different ways
glorifying it,
unhealthy, not stable yourself, all that kind of stuff. So the fear is that you get someone with a lived experience in there, counselling someone that kind of isn't going too good themselves, even though they're clean and sober or off drugs and all that kind of stuff. And there's a negative consequence as a result for the client or for the person or whatever it might be. And there's a whole broader conversation, which I think is really interesting as well, of different ideological ideas about what addiction actually is and what recovery actually is, and whether talking about people being in recovery, clean and sober, is actually in some way kind of discriminating against, believe it or not, these are the kind of crazy conversations, discriminating against people or making people feel like they can't do it if they're not clean and sober themselves, which I kind of understand on a level, but whatever it is, there just has to be some agreed upon way in the public space that we talk about addiction and recovery so that people have a benchmark to measure to.
Oh, gee, we can complicate stuff, can't
I know,
we?
it's
Us
crazy.
humans.
It's crazy.
You know, and it's funny when people say things like, and I say this respectfully because it happens in, not just in addiction, but it happens in, you know, the fitness industry. And, you know, when people go, you make me feel like this, I go, what?
Yeah.
No, you just feel like that.
Yeah.
Because if I made you, then everyone who heard me say this, they'd all feel the same.
Yeah.
But your response is a personal response based on a story you're telling yourself about the words I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know? And so what you're doing is you're blaming me for how you feel, taking no responsibility for your own thinking or self-talk or internal reality. Nobody can make you feel anything. They can stimulate you, provoke you, piss you off. But ultimately, we are the creators of our own internal experiences, that cerebral and that emotional landscape that we live in. This is not about pointing fingers or not being responsible or not accepting blame. It's just understanding how humans work. Because if I'm talking to 10 people and 9 people in that group are like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And then one comes up and goes, you made me feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
I go, well, 9 didn't feel embarrassed. Did I make them feel good?
Yeah.
Like if 9 felt good and you felt embarrassed, am I the problem? Or is it about your... Not are you the problem even, because that's blaming, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like at some stage we've got to... Look, I get it. I completely understand all the stuff that's going on at the moment, and with all of the discrimination and the prejudice and the bias and the tippy-toeing around lots of issues, and I think lots of things that have gone on historically have been fucking terrible in the way certain groups have been treated and are continue to be treated. I get it. I get all of that. It needs to be fixed, needs to be looked at. People need to step up, own up, acknowledge all of those things. But in the middle of all of this, we still need to go, I have some control of me.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not just this victim of everything and everyone.
Yeah.
And yes, if people have done things to you that were wrong, of course those people should be brought to some kind of responsibility and accountability. Of course, I agree. But at the same time, you know, the world is messy, life is messy. People have shit parents and great parents. It's true.
Yeah.
People grow up in shit situations and great situations. Some people grow up in poverty. Some people grow up in privilege, right?
Yeah.
And in the middle of all of the messiness and unfairness and bullshit of life is us, the conscious creatures that go, fuck, how do I navigate this?
Yeah.
How do I navigate this? And that's... So, I don't know. I find it curious that they say to you, Jack, you can't talk about what you've learned and come to understand and navigated and overcome via your own journey in this space. If you're stand up there talking about the night you got off your tits and did this and that, and you're fucking pumping your arms and bragging, I get it. But it's like me as an exercise scientist, not talking to people about my own journey, battling body image issues, obesity, being an insecure fucking bodybuilder, looking for attention, living vicariously through my appearance, which is all part of my story. And when I open that door on that story, people go, oh, thank fuck, you're normal.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for telling me, because I do that. I look for approval with my body. I think that I can fix emotional issues with a physical solution. But you're telling me I can't. I go, no, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
I find it crazy because, and look, what I try and explain to clinicians that don't have a lived experience, we're not kind of kicking you out of the industry. It's awesome that, you want to be there and help people and all that kind of stuff. But what it actually does is when you share your story with someone, what you're saying is that it's not so much like a clinical experience or a psychological, unwinding of negative beliefs experience. It's just like relating to someone as a human being, and it just breaks down the barriers of trust, which is a massive thing for people in addiction. And then it actually opens up the door to have, CBT, conducted with them and all that kind of stuff. That's really going to help them.
So people are going CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. So what I want to do is shut the fuck up for a minute, and I want you to, as best you can, navigate or take us through your story from start to kind of now-ish, like when you first used, what happened, and I'll try not to interrupt too much.
No, it's okay. So, look, I think the thing that people find interesting about my story is that, I do come from, not a perfect background, but a pretty good background, as good as you can get. Very middle-class family, very normal. I look like the boy next door, I'm often told, and all that kind of stuff. But yet, despite everything that I had going for me in my life, which was, like a potential sporting career, all that kind of stuff, I found myself on the path of addiction and using drugs and all that kind of stuff. Just quickly before I get into it, it's like one of the main messages that, I like to share with people is it can actually affect anyone, and you never know like who and what kinds of people are affected by the issue. It really doesn't discriminate. It's such a big thing. So I was heavily involved in sport, but I always just had this, and I was playing sport like crazily as a junior, so pretty much 6 days a week, morning and night. Like bordering on that kind of commitment level that you would have in a professional setting, I guess.
And you're 6'4", 5".
Yeah, so I was 6'6".
Wow.
And I was probably 6'6" at like 16 years old, it was just full on. And I actually always had this yearning to just kind of be a normal teenager, and as I said, I still can't pinpoint exactly why and whatever, but I did have, I was overly sensitive. I had those characteristics of being like obsessive and pretty compulsive and all that kind of stuff. And I guess at the very same time that I was playing all this sport and all this great stuff was happening, I wanted to kind of party and chase girls and just be a normal guy. And all my mates started to smoke, dope or weed or whatever and drink and all that kind of stuff. So any chance that I got, I would go out on the weekend, and instead of just kind of having a couple of beers or whatever when I was like 15, I'd really take the most of my opportunity and go
fully commit.
That's right.
Fully commit.
Get into it. So, and I found that kind of progressed pretty quickly. And for a long time I was kind of playing basketball, and I just say this because it's funny, not to name drop, but at the time Andrew Gaze was my coach, and I was like coming to training every day just off my face.
Yeah, awesome.
And no one had any idea. It was and everyone there was just straighty 180s. And it was just ironic, but I held it together for a fair while. And the first kind of defining moment, I guess, was that we actually went to America on like a basketball tour.
Yeah.
And I was kind of pretty naive, and by this time I was smoking weed every day and drinking a fair bit when I got the chance. I had my first experience with like detox, and I had no idea that it was actually going to happen. It sounds funny, but I kind of realized in that moment that I was addicted. And the thing that I didn't know at the time, but I really believe that drugs and alcohol, or addiction rather, has kind of a personality. It actually changes you and how you think, and all those ambitions that I had to be a sportsman and all that kind of stuff went out the window. And when I got back from that trip, I just said to everyone, I've had enough. I'm giving up basketball. So I went from playing basketball morning and night 6 days a week to nothing. And just going out on the weekends and during the week, and hanging out with my mates. And I've never been very like interested in like academia, you could say. I just had no interest in school. Pretty much at that stage, got asked to leave my school, and I was going to a public school. It's pretty hard to get asked to leave a public school.
Good effort.
And
commitment.
That's right. And went to another school where you just didn't really kind of have to rock up. You got all this free time and all that stuff. And I pretty much just went to school to hang out with my mates and do drugs and stuff. And it just progressed from there really
Can I just
fast.
ask, at 16, have a drink, at 16, and by drink I mean coffee, folks, was it easier for you to get weed or grog?
Weed, definitely, because you weren't allowed to buy grog, and then you'd have to freaking run around and organise an older brother or...
How funny is that you can get an illegal drug easier than a legal drug?
I know.
Way easier.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a whole other conversation with everything that's going on. But look, it just for me, I think because of my characteristics, some of the environmental issues by me doing nothing that was going on, I kind of dived into addiction really quickly and started using different drugs, or harder drugs for a lack of a better word, using with people that were kind of taking drugs the way I wanted to take drugs. And I just...
What does that mean?
So, I started off with my mates from primary school, and they were all actually smoking bongs, but just kind of like still like nice, normal sort of kids, muck around, bit of larrikins, but not that bad. But then like kind of once I started wanting to try other drugs and keep using other drugs like speed and, like magic mushrooms and ecstasy and, like eventually ice and heroin and stuff like that. The kind of characters that you hang out with, it just goes with the territory, were, dodgy as. From a different...
You don't say.
That's right. So, from a completely different walk of life than me, and introduced me into this whole other way of living, I guess, that actually for me at the time was kind of exciting as well, So I very quickly found myself, in that kind of life. And my mum was at around that time when I finished school. So this is about 18, the best thing and the worst thing actually ever happened to me, like I've always had like heroes, whether they kind of be like sports heroes or just like other older men that I look up to that I think are cool and doing good stuff. And my mum was worried about me, and so she got me this job as a carpet layer, right? Weird job, I know, for a guy that's 6'6", on your knees all the time. But anyway, it was her mates from the country. She's from Morwell as well, actually. I know that's where you're from.
Shout out to Morwell.
Yeah, that's right. That good kind of like Aussie blokes that were good dudes, and it was really good for me because I got to be around that and have really good influence in my life. But I was getting about $2,000 cash in my hand every week as an 18-year-old. We were working jobs, and I was like taking heaps of speed, so I'd stay up all night, and I was working.
You're like, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's right. Like no joke. I actually was working this job from 7 till 4, and then I would have like 2 hours break, and then we had this like night job that went till like 3 a.m, and then I would just go home and use heaps of drugs, and then just go back again the next day, and then on the weekend just like crash out. So I had all this money when I was 18. I went from having nothing to heaps, and it was a lot for me at the time, and I was just spending it all on drugs. But then, it comes along with the territory. I was disorganized, unmanageable. I ended up getting fired on the doorstep in my undies because I had the key for a job and didn't rock up.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I lost all that cash, and I was just left with this massive like drug habit, particularly like with amphetamines. And that's when things really kind of started to change for me, because it's not so much the drug use that, excuse my language, fucks you up. It's the crossing the moral boundaries, doing the different stuff that you have to do to get drugs that you feel really bad about. And then, you use drugs on top of that to forget about it all. And it just kind of turns into this cycle. And that's what started happening to me, So I was kind of always, I'm a big guy, but I'm like a big teddy bear, soft as. And I was just like doing things that I was totally scared of. So, like robbing, cheating, stealing, all that stuff. I just found myself struggling big time. And then I came across ice, and it was a bit of a trick at the time, because even though it was more expensive, because it was so much more potent than speed, I only had to use about $50 worth compared to $200 worth a day. And I was flying, for longer. And that's kind of how it started. And I just fell into it really quickly. Wow. And it just, I don't know, again, it took me to a whole nother depth. And just flashing forward, like the snapshot was, I was, 21, like seriously, not kind of pumping it up. It seems surreal to me even to think about it now. But I was when I checked into rehab, I was 62 kilos because I remember them weighing me on the scales, and then they gave me this like protein powder and like nutrient supplement.
6'6" at 62 kilos is, I can't even really picture what that would look like.
Yeah, so that was pretty crazy, and I remember that. And then I was suicidal, so I'd had a couple of suicide attempts and actually been revived in hospital. You know, because like with ice, what goes up must come down. So I was incredibly depressed. I just hated myself all the time, and I would literally go into psychosis all the time. And walk down the street, and I can vividly remember like talking to myself and not realizing it. But you know, like you walk past people and then they just kind of look at you like weird, and then you just have this moment where you snap out of it and you go, "Oh, I'm talking to myself." I was just in a really bad spot. So,
what was happening with your family around all of this at that time?
And that's the stuff. That still to this day, when I think about it, gives me a little bit of an irk in the tummy, and I still feel guilty about it, to be honest. But like I was living with my mum, so by that stage she'd spoken to another family actually that had a son that went through addiction, and she always talks about how that really helped her personal experience again, and she ended up kicking me out of the house because I had my younger brother. Who was like 10 at the time, and it just wasn't safe. Like I was pretty out of control. It was just horrible. Like I would always try and go back to mum's and like break into the house, and the cops would come, and it was just a freaking shambles.
Wow. So what age were you at when this was going on?
Oh, this was from, sort of 19 onwards, I'd say. 18, 19. It's all a bit of a blur.
So you would consider yourself an addict from 15 to what age?
To 21. Yeah. And
do you
shifted for me, and it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me, because it feels like I've taken my power back a little bit. And I've been able to kind of use that as a springboard, which has had its challenges as well, because obviously my ideas have changed around all my friends and stuff like that too.
So what are the main things that have changed? Like you said, in the last couple of years, stuff's really changed around all that. What was it? What is it now?
So I was talking a little bit before about like the ideological ways of thinking and models of what addiction is. So there's a couple. There's like, like social learning theory, environmental theories, basic psychology stuff, attachment stuff, and then there's like the disease of addiction and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of came in through that disease of addiction model, and parts of it I still, really believe, kind of like what we've been talking about. But addiction, like as a disease, I'm not really actually sure if that's a thing from all the reading that I've done and, speaking to like researchers and people that study the brain and, all this kind of stuff. But basically what that model looks at is that, yes, you are like stuck as an addict forever. And that if you're not working on recovery, and you're not like constantly reliving your using story and being on guard and all that kind of stuff, then there's a good chance that you're going to relapse. And that kind of way of thinking about it is kind of true in a way, just from a human development point of like growth and all that stuff. But I actually found for me it didn't like serve me anymore, and because it was keeping me in this thought process that I was broken all the time. So the main thing that's kind of shifted for me is the way that I actually think about myself, and how
and your relationship with your past and your relationship with addiction.
And from that,
and your story to yourself about addiction.
That's right. And from that, I've actually found that when I say empowered, so like my self-esteem has kind of gone through the roof. I've found that I've always struggled with like commitment and discipline and, different things like that in my life.
Grown up things,
that's right. Cleaning my room, making my bed.
Being polite.
That's right. And I found lots of stuff like that in my life has completely shifted from this new way of thinking. That has, really kind of 3x'd my life. Like it's just improved things I can't recognise.
And how's your relationship with your family now?
Fantastic. So, that happened pretty quick. And, the stuff that I learned from recovery and just how to actually go back and, repair your past is, like, I still use it in my life today.
Yeah.
So I did the whole thing of, making amends to my mum. And that's not just, sorry. That was really, changing my behaviour and my actions and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of started to find that when I actually changed me, because that's what you got to do. That's what recovery actually is. It's not just going to recovery meetings or going to rehab. You actually have to change your behaviour, the way you think, all that stuff.
Your operating system for life.
That's right. In many ways, I've actually found that if you listen to people that are trying to change their body with fitness, if you listen to people that are trying to make more money, have a good business, or whatever it is, it's actually all the same. It's the same with recovery.
100%. It's
just human transformation, really, that does it. And at the core of it is that you actually have to physically do something and change.
This is one of my ongoing conversations with people around personal development, which is kind of like getting clean is personal development.
100%.
Making money in some ways, well, it's kind of impersonal, but, becoming a better human, becoming a better thinker, a better creator, more resilient, kinder, more empowered, more solution focused. Not all of that is personal development. And it's funny because in 2019, where we're sitting right now, we've never had more. You think about how many options there are to get clean now, how many treatment programs, and more than ever, more. And then in the space that I used to inhabit, more gyms, more PTs, more fucking step into life and group fitness sessions and fucking F45. What's the other one that everyone does? CrossFit.
CrossFit.
Yeah, there's just more stuff than ever, but it's not about, on a level, it's not about all the resources and options and even knowledge. It's still about the human in the middle of it. Because if you've got the best resources and the best coach and the best advisor and the best team around you and the best everything, but in the middle of all of that, you're living with a shit attitude and you're going, no, fuck that, I'm not doing that, or I'm not ready, or I won't do the work, or I'll do it on Monday, I'll start Monday, and Monday, it's always Monday for 10 years and Monday never comes, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So there comes a point, I always say to people, even in my seminars and conferences, irrespective of what happens today, irrespective of how many light bulb moments you have, irrespective of how much my ideas, thoughts, philosophies resonate, unless you genuinely have some fucking internal shift, unless there's some emotional and or psychological tipping point, that means you will leave here and do the work, right? Not inhabit the theory, do the work to get clean, do the work to become a better human, do the work to lose the weight or build the muscle or run the race or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. And so it's over the years, and you would have, when you sit with addicts who are kind of ready or claim to be ready to do the work and to get clean, I'm sure you can sit in front of them and go, no, he's not ready. He's just here because his mum dragged him along. Or I've sat with people who go, no, I really want to get in shape, and I can talk to them, or I really want to fix this or change that or improve that. And they're saying all the right things, but they are not actually ready to do the work, because to get clean, to overcome addiction, to build a multi-million-dollar business, to grow a brand, to work through your issues, to change your body, to change your situation, circumstance, environment, mindset for the better, all that shit is hard, and we humans don't like hard, we like easy.
Yeah.
Which is why drugs are, in a way, easy, because they get you out of pain and into pleasure momentarily. Not a good long-term strategy, but I understand it in the short term. And so I just feel that people need to get to that place where they're because you knew all along you were an addict. Yeah. Well, for the most part you did. And all along, I'm sure you weren't thinking, I'm going to do this till I'm 80.
No.
Or till I die in 3 weeks. I'm sure on some level you kind of intended to get your shit together at some stage. Yeah. But you had to get to a point. It's not like when you finally went, right, I'm doing it, when you weighed 62 kilos, there was probably a little bit of coercion, and probably you were almost forced into it. But it's not like in that moment you all of a sudden had more knowledge, or different genetics or more resources. It's just you got to a point where it was do that or die.
Kind of. And you're right, 100%. But that's kind of one of the nuances or the weird things about addiction, because what actually happened to me and what happens to a lot of people is I actually didn't want to be doing what I was doing for a long time before I had that last leap. And then actually when
As in you didn't want to be doing the using?
It didn't come out like that, but I didn't want my life to be shit anymore. I just wanted things to be different. And whether my commitment levels or my understanding was there that it was actually the drug use that was doing it for me, or that was at the core of the problem. But when I actually asked for help and I went to that rehab and they said, I said, I'm ready, I want to do this. They said, and this is one of the problems that we have at the moment and all over the world, is that they said, that's great, but we can't get you in until next week. And I just went, really? Yeah. And then what actually happened was I got up the next day and I didn't want to go. And
So you went there going, right, I'm in now.
That's right.
And they went, all right, awesome, next week. And you went, no, you don't get it.
That's right. And it's such a frustrating thing. And this is why I believe so many people at the moment kind of fail, is because they are, it's a commonly phrased term in addiction treatment, is that you've got to catch them in the window of opportunity, because there is that element that, you actually physically alter your brain, and there is like some chemical stuff going on in there. Yeah. And it's like a pendulum. It always swings back the other way, You get someone to commit and then you better help them quick, smart, or else the next day they swing back. And that's kind of where, I really think that, like we were talking about before, that personal experience when it comes to treatment and stuff is invaluable, because that someone's ability just to kind of, like, I can talk people around, not all the time, but I'm actually pretty good at talking people around in this specific area, because I know exactly how they're thinking and feeling and what happens and how it plays out and how to move them through the different stages to get them to the place where they go, all right. But that's a big problem. So the first problem is getting to that stage where you're ready to do the work, and then actually getting the help straight away so that you can change when you're ready.
So there's no delay, there's no time for you to change your mind.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if I'm an addict and I'm sitting in front of you and I know that you've been where I've been and you're now clean and clear and sober and articulate and successful, and I want to talk to you.
Yeah. I
don't want to talk to the 60-year-old doctor in a coat who's looking over the top of his glasses at me. No disrespect to 60-year-old doctors. I don't know. That's just me. And that clearly wouldn't be everybody's preference. But I kind of, like, I always want to talk to the person who's done it.
Yeah.
I go, so have you done this event? If I'm talking to some, I did an event there. We had 1,000 people. I go, oh, cool. What'd you do? How'd you promote it? What'd you do? Or people like to talk to me about writing books because I've written books.
That's right.
So I'm not talking theoretically, I'm talking experientially.
And that's the thing that they want to hear. And that was the same for me. And that's usually what I try and push on people when I talk to them is, for me, it wasn't so much like the guy telling me, I was a heroin addict for 15 years or whatever. Like, I couldn't have cared less. But when he said, like, do you ever feel like you're crazy and your thoughts can't stop racing and you just have this like sinking feeling in your gut like all the time unless you use drugs? And I was like, wow, I've never heard anyone talk like that before. Because I'm sure that's true for a lot of things for human beings, but particularly in addiction for a range of different reasons. But you just become so isolated and you don't actually talk to anyone about how you're feeling or what's going on. So you think you're the only one in the world that feels like that. And that's how I felt as well. And when someone else intimately explains it to you, blows your mind.
So from when you said, I'm getting clean, and you eventually got into a program until so what age were you when you got clean? 21 or
21, yeah.
21. So from when you got clean, how long did it take for you to feel like I'm never going back? Or do you still not have that feeling?
Felt like forever. But it was actually pretty quick.
Oh, really?
Comparatively, yeah. Like, for me, it really kind of snapped in where I started to trust myself, I guess. It was probably around 18 months, I reckon.
Okay, that is pretty quick, isn't it?
Yeah. I thought, like I can run with this. And the reason actually for that, and this is what I'm a big believer in, and we don't talk about it enough, is that, we're always talking about the doom and gloom and the fucked up shit that happens to everyone. But things actually got really good for me on a number of different levels really fast. And I actually started to build a life, that I didn't want to lose. And that was the biggest part for me that kind of happened.
Yeah.
And I don't think when others are working with people in any area of change, kind of focus on making things good and building a life that you don't want to lose enough. Because, there has to be something else that is better than what the drugs were giving.
Such an obvious but true thing.
Yeah.
That's... do you think that... Like I just wrote a book, and I think I can't write so much shit. I think I wrote this in the book, or I may have written it in an article. But I wrote recently about when I was. Oh yeah, it was in Decisions. Yeah, it was in the book. It was talking about questions and decisions and choices and I remember when I was a kid and all of my mates, when I was young, 15, 16, started, mainly just drinking grog. But then as I got a bit older, 17, 18, even 19, and I'm working in gyms and I'm working in clubs and pubs and getting punched in the face, and everybody around me is using drugs and drinking alcohol, and I'm still a teenager, right? I'm 19. And thousands of opportunities to drink and use, as you would imagine, right? Yeah. And I don't know, for whatever reason, probably just because it terrified me a little bit, honestly, but equally as important, maybe more important, I was just obsessed with training and health. And so, but I honestly think with my personality, if I ever opened the door on it, I might have been you, or a version of you, because I always obsessed about whatever I got into, that I was fucking 110%. In business, when I first started, I was 18 hours a day. Training, I had to be massive by next, and every fucking supplement and every, we won't go the whole story, but, everything that I could do, I was doing it for a while. And obsessive. Yeah. And when, even when I went down certain spiritual and religious kind of explorations, it's like, right, that's it, I'm the Dalai Lama. Get out of the way, motherfuckers, I'm spirit, everything. Yeah. It just took, because I was always trying to find something.
Yeah, I believe that.
Do you think that, I think so many people are addicted to something that they wouldn't call themselves, and I'm not trying to put everyone in a pigeonhole, including myself, but I think on some level, it's like, it might be that you're addicted to your house being perfectly clean, and when anyone moves that magazine on that coffee table, you get anxious and stressed and you can't fucking wait for them to look away so you can put it back on the right angle. To me, that's so close to addiction. Yeah. It just manifests in a different form. And, with some people, I think it's control. Yeah. It's about, for some people, it's with their body. Some people... I know that I've gone through even times over the years where I was so obsessive and weird about my food, where I'd be weighing every ingredient in every meal to make sure that my micros and macros, and some people would call that discipline. I would honestly say that it's quite, for me, it was more obsession. Yeah. Because discipline's in control, obsession's out of control. And I was out of control because if someone fucked up my routine around training or food or recovery, I'm like, no good.
And it's interesting you say that, because so for the first 5 years, and that's kind of been part of my shift, is in the last couple of years, for the first 5 years of my recovery, I actually tried to fight myself in terms of that obsession, and I would do all these different practices with the intention to try and stop that kind of part of my personality. And I had this shift where I just realized that, it's actually a part of me, those characteristics, and that's okay, and I'm okay. And then I got some awareness around it, and instead of trying to fight it, kind of embraced it and channeled it into different avenues.
More productive things.
That's right. With, the kind of overarching awareness of, is this getting out of control into something that's like affecting me negatively, or I'm so obsessed with doing work that I can't even look at my girlfriend or whatever. With that awareness, that has been one of the things that's helped me so much, is actually having the awareness and then kind of embracing it a little bit, and not trying to completely change who I am to try and fit this mold. It's a really interesting part of life, I think, that I've learnt about recently.
So as we wind up, I want to ask you a little bit about just something that gets spoken about a lot, social media. So you're young, you're in your 20s, like you've grown up with computers, you've grown up with the internet, you've grown up with YouTube and social media, and it's it and English are your first language, right? What are your thoughts around the hype and hysteria that sometimes comes with, Instagram, Facebook, all the other stuff around the unhealthy impact that might have?
It annoys me. It really does. It really annoys me. And
what annoys you? The hysteria?
The hysteria around it, and just kind of the demonizing of it. I definitely can see what people are talking about, and I understand that it can become unhealthy, and that's not good. It's like anything, if you do it too much, it's going to affect you. But I also just think, like, the world's changed. It's not changing, it's changed, and it probably will again by the time in another 10 years or whatever. Like, I remember my mum telling me that, her parents were angry at her for listening to AC/DC, like the blasphemy.
Terrible.
And I think it's kind of that, really. Like, it's just,
Well, Gary Vee talks about this all the time, doesn't he? And folks, if you don't know who he is, have a listen. But and I guess it's not so much that, social media is just a tool, right?
Yeah.
That's
right.
Well, we're doing a podcast right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're using the internet. We're using all the technology available to us to share thoughts and ideas and messages for free, doing a free podcast which people anywhere in the world can access with hopefully great information and ideas, and social media is something I use all the time, but I guess it depends on, like anything, how people use it.
That's right.
So social media of itself is neither good nor bad, because social media doesn't make decisions. Social media doesn't post anything. People post things using that platform, and then people go, social media is evil. No, people are good and bad, and people do great shit and terrible shit, and people post positive stuff and negative stuff. It's really it's a people issue, not a technology issue, but we want to blame technology. Yeah. Well, I post all the time. And I've never got on ever and ranted ever or run down one single human being in all my years and all my thousands of posts, because it's not what I do, and I'm not interested.
I think like you were saying before when we first started talking, there's, like, the government or institutions or big companies can't fix everything. There's a level of personal responsibility that you have to take for yourself. And I've actually found that it's kind of, for me, it really is about perspective. Like, like, I haven't even been to, like, third world countries and stuff, but I've been, like, through Europe and America and stuff.
Yeah.
And in Australia, like, life is awesome. That's what I got out of the trip. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, in New York, they work 12-hour days with a half an hour break for $12 an hour. And they don't even complain about it. It's just, like, expected. They're not like, this sucks. So, it's kind of perspective. And when I think about, so I have a learning disability, right? And I actually love books now because I can listen to them on audio books, and I just consume them like crazy.
Dyslexia?
Yeah.
Do you know what? So many smart people are dyslexic. Well, so many. No, you are smart.
Yeah.
No, dude, you are smart. Like, you are not academic, but you are smart.
Yeah.
And this is and we're digressing, but one of my peeves is, people think education equals intelligence.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I know some really educated people who are fucking morons.
That's right.
It's true. And I know some people who finished school my dad finished school in year 8. One of the smartest people I know.
Yeah.
Smart as fuck.
That's right.
You his mind at 79 is still sharp.
Yeah.
And so, which is not to say educated people are dumb people or uneducated people are smart people. It's to say that education and knowledge and intelligence may or may not be related.
Yeah.
And, you know, being dyslexic is... But I'm surprised how many... Richard Branson, I think, is dyslexic.
Yeah, he is, yeah. There's heaps. There's so many.
There's so many highly intelligent people who are dyslexic. And because for you, I guess, the world of podcasts must be like a fucking
it's awesome.
dream because you can hear great conversation. You know, I'm not talking about this, folks. I'm talking about globally as well. You know, hopefully you like this podcast. But for me, I'm a massive consumer of podcasts because I can jump on and listen to all these awesome men and women talking about incredible stuff at such a high level, whereas years ago, not that long ago, you would have to go pay to see them speak, or you'd have to watch them on the television for 8 minutes with an interviewer who didn't fucking know anything.
Yeah.
Or you would have to buy their books. But now you get to listen to whoever it is. I watched yesterday Joe Rogan and Professor Brian Cox talk about the fucking mysteries of the universe for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Like, this is fucking incredible. I get to listen to the smartest, what is he called, an astrophysicist or whatever he is. See, that's how dumb I am. But just, I'm going, compared to these dudes, I'm a fucking single-celled amoeba. I'm toe jam. But it's just so good to be able to listen to that. And, you know, that's part of social media. That's part of the evolution of technology.
Yeah.
But some of us sit back and just go, oh, it's all fucking evil. And
yeah, that's right. And like, you know, I actually, my favourite thing these days is just to be around people that are smarter than me. And it's just so cool. Like for my job, I sit on like a committee and they're all like professors and they're just so smart, like academically, and their brains are just huge. And I love it. And I get to keep up with them because all the reports that come through, you know, like, and I can read, but it just takes me ages, you know, like to retain the information. And now I can just highlight it and then press a button on my Mac and it reads it to me, you know. Awesome. And it's, you know, it's really cool. And then I can keep up and have these conversations with people and keep abreast of all the stuff that's happening.
Mate, you're an inspiration. I love your guts. All right, we've got to go, but tell people about the name of your company. Sorry, Melissa, I got off mic again. Sorry, Melissa. Tell us about your company, how people can contact you.
Yep, so Real Drug Talk, easy to remember. Craig actually gave me that name. There you go. Bit of nostalgia. Real Drug Talk, Facebook and Instagram mainly. But yeah, we got the website there. If you punch it into Google, you can get in contact with us.
You're a good man. Keep doing all the good work. And he does work with lots of people, helps lots of people. And I'm sure even if all you want is a 5 or 10 minute conversation, no hooks, catches or agendas, reach out. And the young man with the rapidly receding hairline who has recently shaved his head so he looks like a fucking urban ninja, a really big fucking urban ninja, will get in contact. Mate, thanks for being on the U Project.
Thanks for having me. Good
podcast.
Cheers.
Good.
Another one in the can.
It was lots of different topics. It was good.
I like that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, sorry, it just like kind of goes, it's like that talking about this stuff.
No, mate, it was very good.
Cool.
It was very good. You're a very good communicator now. You're always good for your age, but you're just very good now. It's good.
Well, it's fine. So I was going to ask you, have you heard of these things, beta blockers? Because I get this, I'm not actually nervous. I don't know what, well, maybe I am. I don't feel it. But I just get this fucking red rash. It does my head in.
Oh,
when I'm speaking and shit.
Yeah.
It's not too bad, but sometimes it just goes crazy.
Yeah, I've got some.
Yeah, do they work?
Yeah, they just regulate your heartbeat.